We could certainly provide those, but taking a look through the schedule of values and extrapolating. Some of the contractors have it broken out very detailed by phase, and some of them kind of lump everything together. But we can certainly, if that's some information you would like to have, we can certainly break out those costs, look at that, and bring back that information for you.
Yeah, I would want people to have a rough idea of what a replacement auditorium or a three-story tower would cost, separate from the fees.
We could put that together. It's just we didn't do that because it was a whole project, but we can certainly put an estimate together to break it down. So it's the auditorium, the three-story wing, and what else?
Well, the big thing with the gap, big auditoriums, three-story structure,
Now, what the auditorium was, the music addition behind it, are you looking to have that broken out? That could be a little bit difficult more money if we're going to try to break that out. We can attempt to do it, it just might not be exactly.
they're all
Right. I didn't know if you wanted the auditorium as one piece, music as the other.
Ron, is that something you want them to pursue that work? And take the work to extrapolate all those numbers from us as they're on down. I just want to make sure you're aware.
How difficult would it be to get them numbers separated?
Might be helpful to understand what you're going to do with the information, then we can present it, look at it, relative to what you're going to do.
Well, it's been suggested by some people that we should build a three-story structure, but not the auditorium and all the associated things with that. Is that possible?
What he's basically, I think, trying to get at is the savings on keeping the existing auditorium would more than cover saving the 31 for the community.
Excuse me. There are bigger implications to that. So if you're going forward with the current project but looking to keep the auditorium, you're essentially eliminating everything between here and there. Utilities are fed through the existing building. Power, gas line, things like that. So you would be essentially creating a standalone building that would need a lot of additional work to make it be. Yeah, similar to the tech ed building. So you would need to plan for a central plant over here to feed that, and then also the other issue is that would be located right in the student parking lot / the bus drop-off, and we have to look at what implication that would have from a parking count standpoint and a overall traffic flow on the site standpoint.
Well, you say it would cost money to have it separate, but would it be 12 million? I imagine that the new auditoriums are not simple structures. 10 million, 12 million for the auditorium with the associated whatever to go with it. Is that?
I think it's a little high. We'll definitely get those accurate numbers for you.
Let me ask you a question. There are science labs as they are. Now, if the minus the auditorium, minus the new auditorium, the option 5 plan would go, how far over to the left does that go?
So essentially, if you follow my laser over here, so the science addition was, the music addition was approximately, right, we maintained this exterior exit was approximately right here, in this area here, and the auditorium was approximately in this area here, and then this was the commons here. I think the auditorium came around here, but this is the kind of general area we have it. This is the bus loop over here, and this is all student parking here.
Excuse me, I really think that this is neat design requiring all elements. Where it just the permitting, just the whole redesign and everything, I just, you save a little bit by not having the auditorium, but long term, I think long term it's important that at this point, going forward, that we use the original plan.
Mr. President, first of all, I want to thank Crabtree for the professionalism that you've shown. I would like to make a motion that we proceed with option 5 as it been, with the garage floor, with the roof, with it all. We need to move forward, as Bob said. We're not going to start this project till November if we continue. And I'm making a motion we continue with option 5 as is.
I'd like to second.
At this time, I'd like to table the motion until after public comment. Have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll have the presentation from Dick on the code violations.
Tonight you should have 2 reports in front of you. The first one I'll review here is the construction report 9. Report like this for each meeting. Mostly we are, of course, right now involved in the tech ed building. That is proceeding. It's a little more behind schedule than I'd like to see it, but it's proceeding very well. Everybody's pulling together. All the masonry is complete. Roofing is complete. The greenhouse is complete except for the control system, which I think is underway right now. Nearly all the painting is complete inside. Installation of ductwork, other than for dust collection, is complete. Dust collection ductwork has begun. The reason that we handle those 2 different ways is that the ductwork, the regular normal ductwork, gets painted. So we put that up so it could get painted. Now we're putting in the dust collection ductwork, which will be, it'll be shiny when it's finished, so it will not get painted. They're also installing gas-fired unit heaters in the shops. I think I said before, all the rooftop units are installed. Ductwork is hooked up to those. Lighting fixture installation is 90% complete, and the roof hatch is installed. Even signage, room signage is underway right now. I put that in here to give you a good idea of what the level of completion really is. Building section A, we are maintaining the winterization there as instructed under the board's motion from December. We've never had any frost in that building, so when the board does make a decision to proceed, we'll be ready to do so. The activities that are coming up in the Tech Ed area are continued painting and touch-ups, continue installation of electrical panel boxes from there, continue above-grade mechanical plumbing, electrical rough-ins. There aren't too many left, but there are a few. Lighting fixtures will be continued to completion. Resilient flooring in the corridor and classrooms, we kind of held off, but that'll be going in. We'll continue the shop drawing submittal process. There's still a few things straggling in or changes that are made. One of those is actually the walk-in cooler that we revised in the slaughter room, and that'll be coming in a few weeks. We'll continue the winterization and the ductwork for the dust collector. Final cleaning actually for the Tech Ed wing is scheduled for March 11th at this point. Whether we can maintain that exact date or not, I don't know, but it's interesting to have it scheduled, at least at this point. So, any questions on this report? Okay. I also provided you with what I'm calling a code violation report. Number one, based on the school board's motion that was passed during the last meeting, we were asked to proceed along with Red Bassett and Lobar Incorporated and the contractors we have on the contract on the site, as we were able to without disturbing kids. I'm not going to read the whole report to you, but we actually have been able to complete a good bit of the electrical work already. Most of that is in areas that where students are not located anyway, and it's not noisy work or dirty work, so we're able to do that. We are starting on plumbing at the end of this week, and I expect to be working on the HVAC, which is mostly insulated ductwork, by at least doing the measuring next week, and then we'll see. I'll report to you when we're able to complete that. Jerry Kilgis, the code enforcement inspector, has been through again. There was a portion of the building he hadn't done yet. He did complete his walkthrough. I understand the board has received, is that correct? Has received the supplemental information in that regard. Jerry gave that to me as well. So I'll be supplementing the information we've been given to the contractors to make sure they pick that up. But I will tell you now that the electrical work, again, is already done. So, so we've been able to get out in front of it, trying to make sure that we're complying with the board's wishes from last time. I put an ending paragraph here that comes out of discussions that Brett and I had with Jerry Kilgis and in a meeting with the general contractor. We do have to take some of this information or some of the proposed corrections through the permitting process. We haven't done any of those yet. And those are getting sorted out, especially with the issuance of the other report. So we'll be making sure we understand what those things are about before we just go ahead and do them. Jerry will be available to us if we need to look at anything too. So he's very cooperative. I also wanted to make a point that Jerry specifically indicated, he did this again in the meeting we had with him following the last board meeting, specifically indicated that the section of of the code that would relate to emergency measures was actually exempted from that report specifically. And the meaning behind that was as an indication that none of the specific items that he had cited in his report were such that he would close the building the next day or something like that. The idea is that we will have a reasonable time, 180 days is a reasonable time to address these things. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, and I'll report to you again in 2 weeks. Any questions on this report?
Dick, I have a question for you. These codes that these violations fall under, they're the maintenance codes, correct?
Primarily, that's what's cited in here, Ron. But there are some having to do with some egress concerns and all that would be building code issues.
But a lot of municipalities only go by building codes, correct? And they don't. In other words, the maintenance codes are more detailed codes. They're let's face it, a lot stricter, and stuff that normally wouldn't be a code violation for building codes under the maintenance codes is a violation, correct?
There are two separate codes.
Right.
The building code issues that we have are not causing the property management problems, okay? The two codes are separate enough that one doesn't cause the other. The building code issues that we take care of will not relieve the property management codes either. They're separate. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that there was a lot of public speculation that these codes were excessive deficiencies, that they were major deficiencies, and the majority of them were actually minor deficiencies, but they were deficiencies.
Okay, I mean, what I'll say to that is that I think the preponderance of the code violations that we had in the building are part of the concern. You know, there were a number of them. We have 100 now, I think 130 or 40 pictures of violations, and those aren't the only ones. We had instructions from the code enforcement group that they didn't necessarily pick up every one. They were showing typical examples of things that needed to be addressed. And if we saw other things like that, we needed to address those as well, which we've been doing that, right? Okay? So I think that a big part of this was the fact that there were quite a number of these issues, and they wanted to make sure they paid attention. Right? So. Any other questions? Okay, I'll update you the next meeting when we can bring the progress.
Thank you, Dan. Next presentation will be by Britt Bassett from Bassett Engineering.
Good afternoon, speak. I wanted to review with the board. We updated the value engineering study implementation plan that we presented the last board meeting, February 9th. And we've updated since then. We did identify, as was requested, costs for all of the improvements that we've recommended. I want to jump back to, I don't want to go through the whole report. Been through that, I'd be glad to answer a question. I'd like to go back to the table right back. The first table, there's a page, follows right after page 13. There's a spreadsheet looking table, and I won't back to page 15. Like that. We looked at the project as there being three basic components. Which is kind of, I think there's a lot of similarities to what Crabtree presented their report. There's some differences. We did look at, again, also the new construction being the technical education building and new science wing. And I don't want to try to compare side by side. I think it'd be beneficial to have time to compare them side by side, not try to do it fly. But we see the new buildings. Those are two new buildings and not fixing up the old buildings. And we saw those being $6.3 million for that work. And we also, I do want to go back and also follow up the next page. I got my work that's really an existing contract versus what added to the existing contract. So that's work that's in the existing contract, although of course the science wing would be a modification. These are things that are already in the contract. And physical infrastructure needs is the next grouping, and kind of similar to what CRA said. These are things that are issues with existing building we saw need to be fixed, or the school would benefit that you would not continue using the existing school without making these improvements. There's the codes mandated repairs. We didn't have a number for that. We estimated that. Reinforcing the wood framing and the D-wing here, the 1931 and 1950 structure. Replacing the windows, and as I say, a lot of these are components in the existing contract, only there before a new building, but they can be done as change orders, I think, quite easily under existing contracts. Replacing windows, we use the cost straight out of low bar schedule of values. Without getting into details, we also look at it separately. If you're putting windows in a new building versus replacing windows in an existing building, the cost should be very close. ADA accessibility, our architect came up with an estimate for the cost to make the ADA improvements, both exterior and interior. The EIFS is an exterior insulated finish system. That's what's on the exterior of the cafeteria and the art wing above the cafeteria. We have a cost for that. Could be repaired or replaced. We chose to. Based on water leaks, again, the architect worked with the vendor, came up with a cost estimate to repair the water leaks using the V-dry system and replacing the windows, so that could be made dry. Now again, the next two items are in the existing contract. The second floor locker room repairs and the first floor locker rooms are in the contract, and that work should be able to be done without, I think, any modification or slight modifications. The heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, again, what we were recommending in our implementation plan is to replace the HVAC system, provide air conditioning throughout the building. That would save a considerable amount of costs going forward in operating costs. And we made an estimate, again, based on the contractor schedule values. That is in the contract, and it would take a really simple modification contract to that. Fire suppression, we had an estimate, again, we looked at Silvertip's cost schedule values for that, and came up with their own estimate for that work. Some minor plumbing repairs. A lot of the difference, I think, that we see just visually, actually, Crabtree's costs and ours, and the extent of the work, we didn't see major plumbing renovations in our estimate. Electrical, including fire and controls, I wanted to actually mention that there is a look at page 6 of the report. Now, again, the contract for new building has a number of enhancements that we recommend doing if the existing school is fixed up. So a lot of these costs are included in Fletch's schedule values. We use their costs and their schedule values in our estimate. Providing better site lighting, closed caption TV cameras, replace the clocks, all new fire alarm system, new data and phone system throughout the existing schools, high-speed internet, all the classrooms and other spaces, new speakers and sound, and installing lights. And the installing lights part is, if you remember a couple of meetings ago, we had to buy some lights. They were customized to design. Contractor, the supplier did not take them back. So we did pay Lecce to buy those lights, and they're on site. So we have a cost factor to install them. And that is also straight out of Lecce's schedule values. Security upgrades, that basically is replacing the existing doors. Again, door hardware has already been bought under the contracts, and in order to make use of what's already been spent, we would replace the exterior doors. And the cost here is based on low water schedule values for installing doors. So the subtotal we have for physical infrastructure needs is $6.6 million. So that's work we think you would need to do if you were to keep the existing school as is. The next grouping we have is reconfiguring educational spaces. These are enhancements and modifications, changing things around to try to improve the function of the school. Converting the shops to the library and computer labs. That is, most of these, all of these except for library conversion to the gym and weight room, are not in existing contracts. They would have to be negotiated with the contractors. So we estimate cost based on a per square foot cost. As I say, converting the shops to the library and computer labs. Computer labs, conversion to practice rooms for music and band and chorus, cheerleading and plays and so on. The library conversion to weight room. Some of these numbers we were trying to work between Nick and myself to pull these numbers out of the contractor schedule values, and they weren't directly, the ones we weren't able to pull out, they weren't as directly obvious as the ones we did pull out directly. So that's an estimate. Auditorium and stage, we had in our implementation plan improvements to the auditorium and stage. They weren't nearly as extensive as what CRA talked about tonight. Music construction, we didn't talk about enlarging the band and chorus rooms, but not by expanding out the back of the building, but taking out the common space in between. So there are upgrades to that. And then these others, most of these others are, because there's a new tech ed center, the existing tech space available, and because we propose a new science wing, their science class will be available. So these are kind of a series of things that could be done to upgrade all these existing spacing available. Science classrooms could be upgraded to other classrooms. The south end of the D wing could be converted to offices. The high school offices that are there now could be converted to an expanded lobby. Some modifications, second floor fine arts, although we do note that CRA's new school has half the fine arts space existing. That's fine, that's all that's needed, but the space that's there now is twice proposed. And we do have our own estimate for the site and civil engineering. This was the two bus loops, or it could be the CRA mentioned bus and car loop, one along Arch Street in front of the school and one along Mulberry along the auditorium. So what we saw as a subtotal construction is $15.4 billion. Now, there's obviously some amount, this is much less than the construction contracts, so the contracts would be owed some amount. We made an estimate, this is not part of MASD, we negotiated with the contractor. We did estimate monies they would be owed under their existing contracts because the value of the trucks would be less than what is in the existing contract. And then we made an estimate of the architectural fee, both existing and proposed. So we see a total project cost of $21.3 million. It doesn't have a lot of the enhancements that CRA mentioned. And you might me, it's a very simple thing to look at. It doesn't take a lot of expertise. The value engineering project would need 44 existing classrooms that CRA would demolish and build new. It has to cost more money to build new than to keep existing. In addition to that, there's also existing spaces that are kept, a nurse's office, the auditorium. And I do want to emphasize in particular, I mean, a lot of this has been talked about the age of the school, and part of the school is very old. Part of this school is also, the large part of the school is 20 years old. And I think it's unconscionable to waste taxpayers' dollars that were spent in 1993 by demolishing buildings that are 20 years old. The auditorium is older, it was renovated in 1915. High school office and district offices were renovated in 1993. Guidance counselor was renovated in 1993. The 5-room wood shop, including 4 support rooms, was an all-new building in 1993. The 5-room metal shops, including 4 support rooms, was all new in 1993. The 9-room agricultural suite, including classes, shop, and greenhouse, was all new in 1993. The band and chorus suite behind the auditorium here is all new in 1993. That's 2 band and chorus rooms plus 7 support rooms. The Fine Arts Studio, which was built with steel frame above the existing cafeteria, which is 4 large classrooms plus 4 art support rooms, all new in 1993. And the cafeteria was renovated in 1993, and part of it is new in 1998. So, be aware we talked about demolishing this building. It's not all from 1931, or it's not all from that. Represents, I don't have the exact number, 30 to 40% of the total square foot of the building was built in 1993. I wanted to go back to the next page, the cost estimate. And it starts as construction component work under existing contract. And I want to address this because of the question as to how quickly work will be done because work was started. And I wanted to explain the grouping of work that is under the existing contract that we think should be able to be started this summer. We think it's important to begin work this summer. We don't see why work that's under a contract couldn't be done this summer. So here's the grouping. The new science wing is a modification to this under contract. Technical education building, well, that's going to be done, of course. Replacing the windows, windows will be done this summer. I don't see any need for approvals in that itself. Second floor locker rooms, first floor locker rooms, they are again under the existing contract. The heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system under the existing contract. Fire suppression is part of the contract. All these different electrical improvements under the existing contract, we're just doing them in an old building versus a new building. The security improvements, replacing the doors. Interior finishes, of course, what we're talking about, I think we're all talking the same interior finishes. Tile floor, paint the walls, ceiling tile replacements, things like that. Again, obviously that's part of the existing contract because they were going to do that for the new building, they could just easily do that in the existing building. And of course, the conversion of the library to the gym and the weight room. Now some of these could be done, it seems to me, without any question this summer. Some have to fall into a certain construction sequence. But that's our point, is that we need to see the school lose the summer. I understand what CRA mentioned about normal design schedules. Normal design schedules are not the best one can do. They're ideal. But I think in a circumstance like this where construction has been delayed already for a couple months, I would certainly want to explore with both the contractors and the design professionals what could be done to make use of this summer. I think that's certainly possible. That was really what I wanted to present. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett. I'm sure you would agree that designing an educational facility for the needs of modern education would not be the same as, say, designing a barn where you have to have so many head of cattle. You have to have certain knowledge. The layout, the design of that building must match the needs of the educational environment. There has to be a certain flow, so that everything works together. And I listened to a presentation from CRA a little bit ago, one of the finest architectural firms on the East Coast and most experienced in addressing those designs. My question to you, Mr. Bassett, how many educational facilities comparable in size to this have you engineered or designed?
I'm the leader of the value engineering team. I'm not an architect. We have an architect on our team. We have people who work in schools on our team. I did not do schools myself a great deal.
So you have not done one of these before. You have never actually designed an educational facility of this size.
My job was not to design an education facility, it was to study an education facility. I don't think you need to be an expert in schools to do a value engineering study. I think the value engineering study speaks for itself.
Thank you, Mr.
You stated that there's a lot of things that could be probably gotten underway.
Yes, I think so, yes.
How do you reconcile that statement with Scott's statement that, like it or not, there are regulatory commitments that you have to go through, as was on the screen? So are you saying that we don't have to do any of those things?
I don't think they have to take as long as they are shown to take. I think if you're talking about mixing up existing schools, most of what the value engineering concept is, you wouldn't have to go to the extent of use improvements that are mentioned for a significantly older school.
Okay, but you're not saying that you can delete any of those items that you have on the screen. You're going to have to comply.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying is that you can start this summer with things that don't need approval. Not everything that is being proposed needs the kind of approval we're talking about. The things that do need approvals will have to go through the review process.
But if you start early, then you automatically, maybe stop it, so you automatically forfeit your plan time money? Because you said, we have to follow the rules in order to be applicable for the plan time money. So if we kind of change around, do we lose that?
Yes, Plan Fund wants to see the entire cost impact of the change.
Okay.
Multiple changes. It's going to take time to design those changes. Get it the correct documentation ready for meeting review. Also, you need to bring it at the same time to the regulatory agencies to get their approvals. Otherwise, meeting won't approve it at all.
Okay.
And it needs to be done holistically as an entire project, and then they'll approve it.
Now, we're just talking about plan time, right? I mean,
The same concept goes across to Central County
I'm sorry.
The same concept would be applied to Central County code reviewers. Right now, you have a building permit in place for what we have on the drawings. Right. Once you start to modify that, I mean, David, I have to talk to Jerry, but I don't see how you can start to piecemeal that.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
want to see the whole picture of what you're trying to achieve before you provide the building.
One simple way to say it is that they don't want you to paint yourself into a corner.
Right.
In terms of paying out and developing something you have to pay out later. So
One question. The study that you presented parallels some of the items within his study. So your study would actually have to go back to CRA for no review. Is that what we're talking about here?
coordinate costs.
Well, no, I meant like continue on, and the other option is whatever, Okay, so my point is if we go with his option, we have to go back to CRA, we have to like start all over again, right, basically?
Like I said, in my schedule, one of the first things we're working through is form a project committee so we can discuss project scope details and other details. There's hundreds of decisions that we make. Even if you think this is the greatest option or that's the greatest option, you change what we're doing currently to something different. It is like starting over. You need to start the process.
Scott, one last question, please. You had picked out a few items that you reduced the cost of these construction by.
Yes.
Okay, they were kind of easy ones, form and so forth. And I know it's impossible to give me an accurate number, but would you give an estimate on maybe some other, not things, but how much more that could be reduced by that same concept of, we're not going to use a porta confidently, but,
We have a 45 million that'll be off this. A general rule of thumb, when we go through this process, when we're trying to get something back on the budget, is the first 5%. Take 5% of the construction cost. That's kind of what we call the low-hanging fruit, and that's easy. That's easy to come up with some numbers and some ideas for that. I will caveat this process is a little different. There was a very strict and tight budget. Day one on the project, so we don't have a lot of the quote-unquote fluff out there that we can just, start making quotes from. So it's going to be a lot more difficult on this project because it was, basically just to your needs and nothing more. So,
would you
so I would
say,
say 5% is the goal, but it might be a top 15.
well, it seems like we've already met that because we're down to around 33.
Right, well, those were alternates.
I'm sorry?
What I presented up front, those were all alternates. So in other words, they were alternate on bid day, we have alternate bid prices, whether they add to or deduct from the contract.
No, I was talking about if we go with option 5.
Oh, right. So what I presented up front, but the $1 million of savings,
Right.
those were just alternates which the board elected to.
Right.
Not go with that. So,
I guess where I'm coming from is we got the number down to 33. Remember I asked you the question about how much we spent roughly, and you, my notes are 25 million or 24, 24.2, right? And so we got that number to 33 million now, right? Roughly. I mean, based on what you said we spent and then the figures that you gave us on.
I want to, if you're looking, I want to make sure I give you a back
Okay.
to that. So I'll get the dick and I'll get you that.
Okay.
But I think roughly speaking, you're on the right thing.
Okay, but I'm saying there would be more costs, like again, not that we're gonna change the whole wall, but
Right.
more like materials, like we're gonna buy new furniture or whatnot. So there is a little bit more room to go.
Right, and there'll be, like I said before, if that's the direction you want to go, there'll be decisions to be made. Not everything we're
Right.
going to take out, not like you said, we're going to buy the pound from Williamsport versus Italy. It's going to be things like, we're going to take this out, what is that?
Okay. So with that, once the board votes, regardless of what we vote on, if you voted on option 5, then during the course of the construction, we would be able at that point to still come back and cut things, or once we vote for option 5, that's it, we get whatever you,
Absolutely, we can continue to.
so you can build a basic structure, and we can still alter, reduce the cost by certain areas.
Correct.
Now, these things that you would come up with, that would possibly be cost-saving measures, would it be items that would lower the quality of the construction? I mean, we already know we got a 93 construction project that the quality wasn't the best on that.
So, if we were to look at any of those items, we would certainly make you aware and say, listen, save this amount of dollars, but here's what it does long term. For instance, the trouser. The trouser is definitely cost savings, but there is more maintenance involved per piece
Scott?
So it would be pay now or pay later.
Well, in some items, yes, but in other items,
No, that's
you get a 20-year, you get the same warranty on the roof, different manufacturer, then warranty's warranty. So you're not going to trade off it, you save money. That's what we have to talk to the general contractor group and stuff like that.
Scott. Again, we talked roughly now, 33 million now, right? If we go to the option 5, is that from this, a $36 million number?
You mean,
Well, you said to, today, we go forward with option 5, which is going to cost $24.2 million, roughly. And you said we spent, roughly 9, we're up around 33 million is what we agreed on, right? Okay, so my question is, if we vote option 5, are we committed to spend 36 million, when you just said that we can do it for 33?
well, don't forget, there are other costs that have been spent to date that are construction related. So in other words, our design fees, upfront permitting, regulatory reviews that will get you to that $36 million.
I thought they were supposed to on that.
No, they were only, we took a look at the picture of, from this point forward, you got these two tabs. Here are the costs that you would expect to spend from this point forward. Kind of said, let's forget about what's, I'm not going to say forget about it, but let's not look, analyze what's spent to date. Nothing that can be done about that. Let's look at the cost going forward. Two pictures and two scenarios.
Okay, well, I guess I'm confused is the cost to finish it is 24.2 and roughly we spent 10. We're back to that number 33. So how do we get from 36 to 33 at the present stage?
We have to keep them.
I know you took a couple things out. I know that.
Maybe what we can do also is we need to the information of total project costs, picture of moving forward. Maybe that would be good information for you to take a look at.
No, yeah, because it's a little confusing. I mean, right now,
Yeah,
here, if you go roughly 33 million, we can get a new school.
Well, from this point forward.
Right. But we rated it 37.
Well,
And I understand what
we
you're
spent on prior to today.
Okay.
That we'll give a lot of information up here tonight.
Way too much.
With the quality of the material you're using in this option 5 building as it stands, as your plan stands, what's your estimated time frame when, through normal use, it would be ready for a renovation?
Okay. Yeah, it all depends on the system and component. If there's different lifespans, actually, if you reference in our facility study, there's information that talks about the average life expectancy of all components of the building, whether it be HVAC systems, flooring, or finishes, or things like that. Those are industry standards. So you can kind of reference back there to see some of the details, but yeah, it's in the district-wide facility study. So it varies by component, but certainly building will last long. If I remember, the HVAC was 20 years, well, the plumbing was 20 years, according to your chart. And I don't know what, a lot of them were 20 years, some of them were 25.
Roofing could be 20 years.
Yeah, so in other words, it's as Mr. Ruffing said, you're just kicking it down the road, in 20 years, you're gonna have to do it over again.
Same building to building. Oh, my God.
education changes. So your educational needs 20 years from now, you're not going to anticipate all those things today. That's why the state will give you reimbursement every 20 years. 20 years from now, you should expect that the flooring that is terrazzo is going to not need replaced. Flooring that is vinyl tile will need to be replaced. Components and mechanical systems need to be replaced, but many components of the electrical system will not. I'm not going to even guess on the IT system because as soon as we begin to guess, we're going to have a major change on the IT system. And it could be, who knows what will happen there, to be honest with you. But the idea is that the building is a minimum of a 20-year building. That's the minimum. But what you're saying, what I'm hearing you saying is that 20 years down the road, education changes, and so we may need a library twice as big. We may need a library half as big. We may need no more computer rooms because it's not a centralized thing. I mean, what you're saying is if everything changes, 20 years is a good time. And my other question is that part of the plan is that, in other words, it's built into this that we're going to have to do modifications in 20 years because some of the systems have a lifespan of 20 years to get there. But at the same time, we're going to take out loans for 30 years. So maybe we shouldn't be, I mean, we're not even paying off our loans if we're doing it again. All buildings would not need to be replaced in 20 years or even 30 years. Some of that notice would, but through proper maintenance over this 20 year, 30 year period, you should be able to get 30 years or more out of your system. It doesn't mean you won't be replacing examples and some components, but the building itself, with proper maintenance, should be a 30 to 40 year building. Right. I agree with you. That's exactly my point. My point is that with proper maintenance, that the buildings we're sitting in right now have more life to them. And maintenance will not be done. The problem with that theory is 93.
Can you come up to the microphone? They can't hear you. Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Doug Warbaum, founding principal of Grafton Warbaum. And everything that we presented, everything we've done for this school district is based on our more than 20 years of experience in public education. And our estimates are based on our experience completing more than $3.5 billion worth of educational facilities here in Pennsylvania. So I think we understand educational components, how educational facilities should be laid out today, and how they should be designed. The problem is that what has happened here in the past is you have not had a comprehensive program. So without a comprehensive program, it's very difficult to maintain a building and get more than 20 years out of it. That's why what's being done here isn't, and what you see in this building, isn't a result of poor maintenance. It's a result of having a poor building built in '93 to maintain. So if you build a building today, as in option 5, and I'm not telling you that I thought option 5 is the best or the worst option, but if you build option 5, or any of the options that were in the study, we are looking at a building that is totally different from an educational planning standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, from an electrical, all the system standpoint, than what was done here in '93. What was done here in '93 was not comprehensive.
said it at least 3 times in this space over those last year or so. And that is, if I remember saying, if I could wave a magic wand and make this building, the existing building, which is option 4, 100% brand new in every way. All the systems work, the roof is new, the windows are new, everything is brand new and operates efficiently. Does the building meet the needs of the educational program? And the answer is no. I kept hearing no, no, no. It's because it's been put together in a piecemeal way, as I said earlier tonight, every decade, there may be one in there that you didn't build, but 40s, 50s, 60s, 90s, and now we're looking at another one. It is a conglomeration of additions that don't make sense in today's modern, typical, well-designed, and well-organized educational facility.
So you're saying, that option 4 should not have been promoted, and option 1, what we're saying, what about option 1? That was it better than 5, because 5 maintained all things and tried to, well, patch them up.
Option 1 kept the stone building, and almost all of the building was new. It had more new in it than option 5, and that's what made it cost more. So option 1 is not the least expensive option. Option 5 was similar in theory, but it was put together differently with the 3rd story to keep it more compact and more cost effective, giving more green space and parking to the site. And as I said, it was a little bit less expensive and met all the educational program needs. So there was 1, we tried 2, 3, it was a new building out at the middle school site. 4 was trying to it was really 4, the catalyst for 4 was, what if, I'm getting questions from the community, what if we just completely renovate the existing building, how much does that cost? And it was like 22 million plus or minus, and
22.
Something like, yeah, 22 million, you have to compare that against.
That would be the savings. How much savings would that be?
Well, it didn't meet the requirements of the educational program, and everybody knew that, but they wanted to know what it would cost.
You don't know what the savings would have been?
Savings from what?
Between the 22 and the other number for option 5? 36.
Option 5 was 36.
Yeah.
From 22.
How much?
Well, the difference between 38 and 22.
Yeah.
36.
How much?
Or 60.
So we're saving $14 million. Plus, I believe there was $1 million or $2 to the stadium 90 degrees. My question is that if 22 would modify everything and we save 14 million, and the value engineering estimate is for the total project is 21, then that's not too far out of line.
What about education?
Yeah.
We're getting all new.
Now you're comparing construction dollars.
Good night. $9 million.
And as we said, the decision was made. We had to show you what that number was, but did you really want to spend $22 million construction costs and not improve your educational programs?
Yeah.
I would ask you to please respect the speakers. We're discussing it.
We are respecting them, we're not respecting them.
Or maybe you ought to start.
I keep hearing these chairs. Do you
Let
want?
her talk! That's the board meeting! It's not your meeting!
Yours and yours.
Like I said, I'd appreciate it if you would respect all the speakers, no matter who they are. We're trying to discuss it. We have a big decision to make. And people carrying on doesn't make that decision any easier. Thank you.
So, my understanding is that one of the things that I hear you say is education. You need to have all the science classrooms together. Is that right?
And integrated in with the other classrooms.
And so forth and so on. So then you need to have all the tech ed out in the back lot, right?
Because of its nature, the noise and the smells and the type of tech ed it is. It's an
I'm not
appropriate
aware
spot,
of
that's
that.
an appropriate location for it.
I'm not aware that that was a problem in the 95, but be that as it may, in other words, one of the things you would recommend is that even if you don't build a new structure, that once in a while you reevaluate, are all my English classes together, or whatever you need? Are they near the, whatever they need to be near, like the journalism group? Is that right? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, what else?
Large group rooms, small group rooms, individual instruction areas, wireless technology throughout, shortening the distance, making the building more compact, so
Why is that?
to shorten the travel time between areas and to facilitate the interaction during the periods of the day, not only between classes. If someone has to go down to the library with this newer plan,
So you're listing things that we already have.
you have them, but let me say
Well,
this.
let me
Just offer, let me offer an analogy.
Okay.
You could buy a house and it has a perfectly good kitchen on the first floor. But the dining room, for some reason, is on the second floor. You can live there and operate like that if you want, day to day, but it's not the best way to have a dining room and kitchen relationship. You have that type of thing going on in this building in various areas. And the proposed VE idea makes it worse relative to science and the library if you follow those locations. The library, when it's being put into the previous shop location, is as far away from the academic area of the building as you can get it. You would never, in a new building or a properly renovated, redesigned building, put a library out there so far away from the academic classrooms.
So therefore, it comes to my mind, why did you put the tech ed farther than it was already? Those kids come back here for English and other core subjects. Why did you push them way out?
We talked about that educationally with the faculty and administration and the way they work those programs. That was an adequate and appropriate way to locate that section of the building.
That doesn't sound good to me. It sounds like you changed it. Plus, the other thing is, and I mean, they're not going across the street or down the road. They're going distances that, I mean, I parked down at the far end and walked up here. And I didn't even walk through the building. I walked the long distance around. I didn't have any problems with that. It wasn't 20 minutes. It was less than, I don't know, it was 3, 2. I mean, you keep bringing up these things that educationally, but I can't find that in your reports, and not even the first one
what those educational things we're missing are, other than distance, which we've already discussed, is already been made longer.
It's all in the report.
Right. But I don't understand
Plus,
where those things are.
the administration can manage the building better.
And the other thing is,
Safety of your students, by getting things grouped properly for that control.
but when they're in their classroom, are they grouped?
Well, you know, I guess, you know, your feeling is that us as architects just want you to do option 5.
No. If you look
What
at,
I'd like to be in a position is to continue to work forward with the board to, you know, if your desire is to save money.
no. My desire is that I don't like these generalizations when they're not true. Such as the distance needs to be less, and then we find it's greater. If you would look in the, whatever the number, 25 items in the value engineering study, over half of them, some of them are fairly simple, and it's not a big deal, but a lot of them, over half of them I would guess, say we would have CRA do this design, do this.
And you know, I understand that. And if you look at something in this, if I were thinking of just CRA and not thinking of Montoursville, we'd be here pushing hard for you to stop this project and do the value engineering project. Because the architectural and engineering fees in the value engineering project is somewhere over $1 million. Maybe as much as $1.5 million. The fee that you owe us to finish is around $150,000.
We've already paid you $2.5 million. Why is that?
Because to finish the project, you owe us $150,000. But if you're going to redo the project, you can hire us or any other firm. But to redo the project, you're going to spend between $1.2 and $1.5 million.
It depends how much we decide to do. I mean, there's the stuff that was listed.
The best way to save money, our analysis of it, is to move forward with option 5 and value engineer option 5.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with you. Because the best way to save money is to choose the option that the total project cost is $21 million, not $36. And so that's a savings of $15 million, not to mention another $8 million in interest charges over the next, whatever, 30 years. So that's 8 and, what did we say, 15? That's $23 million. You got it? I don't have it.
Mr. Rohrbaugh, Britt would like to say something now. And don't sit down, because I have a couple of questions for you too, please.
I just want to address real quick the idea of compactness and the science wing being out by itself and the library being out by itself. And I don't see it being that way because the corridors would tie the science wing to the library and also ties the science wing to the existing corridors. What I see is that the entire educational function shifts to the east. The library and science wings would be very close to the band and music, to the cafeteria, right next to the gymnasium. So what I see is the whole school core functions. If you look at what kids spend time in, all their different classes, they're actually more compact but they're just shifted east from where they are now. That's just my opinion.
One question I have, and first of all, I hope everybody realizes that this is an informational period. This is a period for us to gain information so we can make a decision. We could have held this in an executive session and asked questions. but we felt the public deserved to hear what we was asking and what the answers we were getting. Last year there was an option that the entrance to the building there was a different design where it had a roof that looked similar to the entrance to the school now.
District administration.
Yeah, and it was decided not to go with that option because of the extra cost on the roof trusses, I believe.
In part, I think it was aesthetics.
A variety of different items.
Do you happen to remember what that the cost of that entrance was compared over and above what the existing entrance
I
is?
don't think we ever did a formal cost estimate. I think it was something we stated that we felt the cost more. We provided a cost estimate, but we never asked about the board to provide a detailed cost estimate.
That's great, but there was issues with the roof line, right? We had concerns about the snow load and stuff, those two roofs being in, and then the cost. Your projection was the cost was that, right?
We never thoroughly investigated.
Well, I remember that the cost was going to be a little bit more, but I didn't know if there was a cost ever figured out on that. The list of cost reductions that you could possibly come up with, how soon do you think that you could have a list of those reductions?
Say typical process is within a month or two, depending on how deep we dive into that. Certainly have a month, the initial larger concepts developed. I just want to also point out, just so everyone's clear, stated in the slide that would be initial services to.
I have a question. It was my understanding that you were going to evaluate the bioengineering study and see what you said, which is here, I believe. Is that right? That's done. And that you were going to produce
Solid estimates.
or bids or whatever you call them, of what it would cost to go forward. So, for instance, to modify, one of the things that we had asked was how long and what would it cost for you to modify the 3-story to a 1-story and place the signs? Is that done?
That's estimated in part in the schedule we got up on the screen, and that is included in that.
For just that part?
Well, you would have to go, but it would be curious to me to see how the regulatory agencies would react to a portion of the building being presented and looked at and not knowing what to do with the rest of the building. If you're asking us to do that, you would have to tell us what you want to do with everything else so we can holistically put it together, get it reviewed, and get a reaction from regulatory agencies.
Speaking of, you're speaking of what regulatory agency?
That list that I had on the zoning.
Right, so the footprint.
Borough, like Home County.
But my understanding is that the footprint of that science area is not bigger. It's a little smaller than the original footprint.
The primary thing that needs to be said is that it's different.
Yeah, but it's not.
It affects all parking. Leaving other parts of the building in place and not doing the plan that was reviewed and approved earlier, you're going to have to go back and present the changes in order to get reaction.
Let me just say this. Anytime you serve more than an acre of land, you have to go through a land development process.
But I would imagine that the planning and other people who are reviewing those would look at it and say, compared to what we already approved, this is less. And compared to what we already approved, the footprint, we're not disturbing another acre, we're still disturbing somewhat less.
This is what I do on the design engineer. This would be addressed as a modification, a minor modification to the existing plan. It would not go back to square one. The plan that's presented, the value engineering concept, is a minor modification to the existing school. It would not take 6 months to get a plan. It does not need to go through all these approvals. It doesn't take 6 months. I do this for a living.
That's the local information of
local.
what happens from a person who does that.
He doesn't do that.
A company that does that all the time is saying, in this county, this is how it goes.
Well, actually, if you go back and look at the schedule, we didn't have a 6-month review and approval process. I think that was more like a 2-3 month review process. Okay. Part of it was upfront revising the documents to get to a point where we should submit.
But the other thing is this, in that we looked at part of the time chart. In the past, you've produced a full time chart, and this time chart said that things, according to the plan, things would start in November. And in fact, if we would continue with option 5, things would still be under construction until when? We don't have an end. We used to have an end. It's my understanding it's 2 years old. 2.5.
I'm going to let Dick talk to this as far as presumptions of project and the impact of the schedule.
Now, if we resumed construction, especially on the 3-story,
right?
We've done the winterization, so we are prepared to start it. It requires a little bit of a domino effect, though, with the tech ed space, as you well know. So we would be getting the other tech ed space ready for occupancy while we're ordering the materials that were stocked at the board's direction, okay? We've been on hold now for about 11 weeks, I believe is what it is. Whether that would translate to an exact day-for-day extension or effect is a little bit debatable, because we have to go back and look at the phasing again. Remember, we've always been trying to keep the kids separate from the construction. We've taken huge steps to try to make sure that's the case. And the initial phasing worked with that very well. That might actually require a little more time, in terms of what we would have to do. But we could start immediately.
Right, but the original, there were, I believe, 3 or 4 different timelines. And the question is, in other words, the chart that shows that November, I'm saying is November's not that horrible an idea, because that plan, my guess is, according to what I see in here, would be done by September of the following year, which is probably the same or sooner. So in other words, it's not totally out of line on the timing.
Actually, I talked about that in the presentation. If we were to start construction in November, or as Paul mentioned, let's say we could take a couple months out of it and really hone down on it and start at the end of the summer. That amount of work that you're undertaking, you really need those 2 summers to do as much work over those summers as possible. That large of a project, to phase it over just 1 year, you're gonna, I don't know how you move the kids around, construction takes the whole period. So we had stated that if you go forward with the VE plan, the schedule, we would want
maybe not tonight, but the vote was taken to resume option 5. Dick said there's some legitimate concerns getting things in the pipeline. How soon would workers be on the job site? Being that we're almost in the margin, well, hopefully we're getting an early spring. A month?
Well, they never left.
We still have workers on the job site.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to catch up that though. But I just want to make the point that we would be shifting. There are, first thing we would be doing is dismantling the winterization that we did. Okay? That would be masonry people would be out there, start to work again. We could actually start at the top of the walls that are there now, as long as we have decent weather. And we're getting better and better at that. So, you know, there would be additional workers out there within, I'm going to say within a week.
I have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up so we can get some public comment in. There's been scuttlebutt rumors that there was a 90-day period that is almost up for the contractors. That's not the case, is it? Because the contractors have been working.
Ron, I don't know if it has anything to do with the contractors continuing to work or not, but let me just tell you right now that we are looking into that. We want to make sure that we tell you the right thing in terms of whether there are any state statutes that might affect that. What I'd like to be able to do is give you a written sort of opinion on that. And in order to do that, I want to coordinate that with Ben too. But I'm not seeing that you have anything to worry about immediately.
Well, I mean, I was under the impression that you would seek corporate counsel that we
are.
Find out the right answer because the contracts are a little confusing.
Well, the contracts are what they are. I mean, these are contracts that we use on quite a number of schools and probably other project types as well. These contracts are written in a way that they strongly protect the owner. Okay, they strongly protect the school districts.
Because the state oversees the writing to the contracts, correct?
Well, yeah.
I mean, they have a basic contract you have to follow, and then
So we write our own front end of the contract. We're reviewed by many construction attorneys. The idea is we want to write a standard project or a contract and a standard contract to protect our public lines. 90% of our work is public, school districts and county, state projects, and we want to protect public trust and public funds. So our contracts are pretty stringent. We think we're covered pretty strongly under the contract. We want to be sure of that. We don't think we're in trouble with the money.
okay. Right. Thank you guys for all your information.
Mr. Snell, I understand we're having an hour of comment. Can I request a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not going to ask you why.
It's not over. It's not? Listen, we're going to let people go out and talk, and then we're going to vote whether or not they're going to restart the project. 20 years ago, they hired him for advertising.